my daughter's friend. Claire hugged me and said I was the only one who cared about her, then begged me to keep her secret. When I told her we needed to call her mom, she looked at me like I'd betrayed her and said, "Please, I need you more than anyone." I stepped back, but she showed up at my office days later, with a letter telling me she was in love with me. Things could have gone way worse with this whole mess, and I honestly think I dodged a bullet with how everything played out. I realized plenty of guys in my shoes would have done something terrible with this girl, and maybe it's good she tried this with me rather than some creep who'd actually hurt her. I'm a 48-year-old guy, married with 2 teenagers, my daughter who's 17, and my son who just turned 15, and they're both really good kids. They both have active social lives, and even though they're having a very different high school experience, I'm proud of both of them equally. My son is very cerebral, and he focuses on his studies more than anything in school. He's a gifted kid, but he still has a couple of friends. My daughter, on the other hand, is a classic social butterfly. She plays sports and has a big friend group that has grown over the years. I've seen girls come and go, and it seems like they have had their fair share of fights within the group, and my daughter always keeps me updated on the drama. Our house is large, and my wife and I are pretty laid back, so our house has become the hangout spot for our kids' friends. On most days, our house is full of a few of both of my kids' friends, and there are about 4 to 8 teenagers hanging out at my house. Both my kids have pretty good friends, and before this one girl, I had never had a problem with anyone my kids brought home. That was until recently, when my daughter became friends with a girl named Claire. The day I met her, my daughter introduced me and told me she had just moved to town. I immediately thought there was something sort of off with this girl. She had this heavy sadness about her. She avoided making eye contact, and she was very skinny, like she skipped most meals. Something bothered me about her, and after she had been over a few times, I told my daughter that I didn't want to pry, but she should let Claire know she is welcome to any food in our kitchen if she likes. My daughter explained that Claire lived with her abusive mother, who was very mean to Claire, especially about her body. My daughter told me that Claire had developed an eating disorder caused by her mom's abuse, and it just broke my heart. I told my wife about Claire's situation, and we agreed that we needed to be extra welcoming to the poor girl. My wife ended up asking my daughter to ask Claire for her favorite foods, and I went to Costco and bought them in bulk. The next day, my daughter and Claire had a half day and came to my house after school. When they walked in, I said hello and told Claire she should try some of the new snacks. The girls walked into the kitchen, and my daughter showed Claire everything we had gotten her. Claire was silent, so I looked over and said, "Just let me know if you want anything else, sweetie. Mi casa es su casa." Just a corny dad joke. I didn't think much of it until Claire looked at me with teary eyes and thanked me in a quiet voice. My heart really aches for the kid, but my wife and I were happy she could come enjoy the safe space of our house. Yet I could have never thought how things might have gone wrong, and I could have never known how stunted and vulnerable this poor child was. I noticed Claire started showing up more often after that day. She'd arrive earlier than the other kids and stay later, always finding reasons to help clean up or organize things around the house. My wife mentioned she'd seen Claire carefully washing dishes we'd already run through the dishwasher, like she was trying to earn her keep somehow. 2 weeks passed, and the pool party we'd planned for the kids went off without a hitch. The weather cooperated, everyone had fun, and I grilled enough burgers and hot dogs to feed a small army. As the sun started setting, parents began picking up their kids one by one. My daughter headed upstairs to shower, and my son retreated to his room to work on his robotics project. Claire lingered by the pool, collecting abandoned towels and stacking plastic cups. I grabbed a trash bag and started helping her clean up. She worked quietly beside me, methodically folding each towel with precise corners. When we finished with the pool area, she followed me to the kitchen without being asked, immediately starting on the pile of dishes in the sink. "You don't have to do all this," I said, grabbing a dish towel to dry what she washed. "You're a guest here." She kept scrubbing a plate that was already clean. "I want to help. You've done so much for me. We're happy to have you around, Claire. You're a good kid." She paused, her hands still in the soapy water. "You know, I've gained 3 pounds since I started coming here. That's great. I'm really proud of you for taking care of yourself." Before I could react, she spun around and wrapped her arms around me, pressing her face against my chest. The dish I was drying clattered onto the counter. Her grip was desperate, like someone clinging to a life raft. "You're the only one who really cares about me," she whispered into my shirt. Every alarm bell in my head went off at once. I gently but firmly put my hands on her shoulders and stepped back, creating distance between us. Her face crumpled with confusion, and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Claire, I care about all my daughter's friends," I said carefully. "But we should probably call your mom to pick you up now." She shook her head violently. "She's working late. She won't be home until midnight." I pulled out my phone. "Then let me call her at work." "No!" The word came out sharp and panicked. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Nobody's ever been nice to me like you are." My wife appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene with a quick glance. She'd changed into her scrubs for her night shift at the hospital. "Everything okay in here?" "Claire was just helping clean up," I said, grateful for the interruption. "But she needs a ride home." My wife nodded, reading the situation immediately. "I can drop you off on my way to work, honey. Go grab your things." Claire's shoulders slumped, but she trudged out of the kitchen. My wife waited until we heard her footsteps on the stairs before moving closer to me. "What happened?" I ran a hand through my hair. She hugged me and said I was the only one who cared about her. The way she said it Something felt wrong. My wife frowned. I've noticed she watches you a lot. During dinner last week, she barely took her eyes off you. Why didn't you say something? I thought I was imagining it. She's been through so much trauma. I figured she was just latching onto a stable adult figure. We heard Claire coming back down the stairs. My wife squeezed my arm. We'll talk more when I get home. Maybe we need to set some boundaries. Over the next few days, my phone started buzzing with increasing frequency. Claire had gotten my number from my daughter, supposedly for emergency purposes. The first text came Sunday evening, asking about help with her algebra homework. I remembered mentioning once that I'd tutored math in college, so it seemed innocent enough. I sent her a few links to helpful websites and thought nothing more of it, but the texts kept coming. Monday brought 3 messages about different math problems. Tuesday, she asked what kind of music I liked. Wednesday, she sent a photo of a sunset from her bedroom window with the caption, "Thinking of you." That one made me uncomfortable enough to show my wife. "This is escalating," she said, scrolling through the message history. "Look at the timestamps. She's texting you at midnight, at 5 a.m. I haven't responded to anything personal, just the homework stuff, and even that I've kept brief. We need to talk to our daughter, find out if Claire said anything to her." The next evening, Claire showed up for what my daughter had described as a study group, but when she walked in, I hardly recognized her. She'd always dressed in baggy clothes that hid her thin frame, but tonight she wore a fitted dress and heels. Her face was covered in makeup that looked like she'd applied it with a heavy hand, trying to appear older. My daughter came downstairs and stopped short. "Claire, why are you dressed like that? We're just doing homework." Claire's cheeks flushed. I felt like dressing up for once. Is that a crime? The study group assembled in the dining room, but I noticed Claire had positioned herself with a clear view into the kitchen where I was preparing snacks. Every time I looked up, she was watching me instead of her textbook. When I brought the food to the table, she laughed too loudly at my dad joke about the periodic table, touching my arm as she giggled. My daughter shot me a look that clearly said she'd noticed too. The other kids seemed oblivious, focused on their work, but the tension in the room felt thick enough to cut. I excused myself and found my wife in our bedroom. "She's wearing a cocktail dress to a study group," I said, "and she keeps touching me." My wife set down her book. "This is getting out of hand. We need to intervene before something worse happens. What if we're wrong? What if we're reading too much into this? Trust your instincts. If it feels inappropriate, it probably is." We decided to wait until the study group ended to talk to our daughter privately, but as the kids were packing up, Claire approached me in the kitchen again. "Mr. Thompson, could you help me with this calculus problem? I know it's advanced, but you're so smart. I bet you could explain it." "Claire, it's getting late. Maybe you can ask your teacher tomorrow." She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something floral and too mature for a teenager. "Please, just this one problem? We could go to your office where it's quiet." "Number." The word came out firmer than I intended. "Your mom will be here to pick you up soon." Her face fell. "She's not coming. She never comes. I usually walk home. Then we'll drive you. Could you drive me? Just you? I wanted to talk to you about something private." Every instinct screamed danger. "My wife will drive you." End of discussion. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but there was something calculating in her expression. She gathered her things and left without saying goodbye. My daughter appeared in the doorway moments later. "Dad, we need to talk about Claire." We sat at the kitchen table, my wife joining us. Our daughter twisted her hands in her lap, clearly uncomfortable. "She's been asking me weird questions," she began, "about you and Mom, like if you guys ever fight, or if you're happy together. She wanted to know your work schedule, what time you leave, what time you come home." My wife and I exchanged glances. "What else?" "She asked if you ever talked about her, if you mentioned she was pretty or smart or special." Our daughter's voice dropped. "And yesterday, she asked if I thought you would ever leave Mom for someone younger." The room went silent. My wife reached for our daughter's hand. "You did the right thing telling us. Has she said anything else? She keeps saying she wishes she had a dad like mine, but the way she says it doesn't sound like she wants a dad. It sounds like she wants—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "We understand," I said, "and we're going to handle this, but I need you to know you haven't done anything wrong by bringing her here. You were trying to help a friend. Is she going to be okay? I mean, she clearly needs help, but not this kind of help." My wife, ever the pediatric nurse, shifted into professional mode. "She needs therapeutic help. What she's experiencing is called transference. She's confused kindness with something else because she's never had appropriate male attention." That night, we lay in bed discussing our options. We couldn't ban Claire from our house without explaining why to other parents, which could humiliate her, but we also couldn't let the situation continue escalating. "I have a colleague who specializes in adolescent trauma," my wife said. "Maybe I could arrange a casual meeting, see if she can assess the situation. What if Claire does something drastic? You've seen how fragile she is. That's exactly why we need professional help. This is beyond what we can handle as well-meaning adults." The next few days passed in tense watchfulness. Claire continued texting me, but I stopped responding entirely. She showed up at the house twice when my daughter wasn't home, claiming she'd forgotten something. Both times, my wife handled it, not letting her pass the front door. Then came the night that changed everything. My daughter was hosting a sleepover with 5 girls, including Claire. Around midnight, my wife and I were getting ready for bed when we heard a knock on our door. "Mr. Thompson?" It was Claire's voice, soft and trembling. "I don't feel well. Could you help me?" I looked at my wife, who immediately got up. "I'll handle this." "No," Claire said through the door. "I need Mr. Thompson. Please, I think I'm going to be sick." My wife opened the door to find Claire in a thin nightgown, looking pale and shaky. Honey, I'm a nurse. Let me help you. I need him, Claire insisted, her eyes finding mine over my wife's shoulder. Please. Against my better judgment, I stepped into the hallway, but I made sure my wife stayed with us. What's wrong, Claire? She swayed on her feet, and I instinctively reached out to steady her. The moment my hand touched her arm, she collapsed against me, wrapping her arms around my waist. I love you, she whispered. I know you feel it too. The way you look at me, the way you care. I immediately stepped back, my hands up. Claire, no, this isn't appropriate. She lunged forward, trying to kiss me. I turned my head, and her lips hit my cheek as I firmly pushed her away. Stop. This needs to stop right now. You don't mean that. Her voice rose, hysterical. You're the only good thing in my life. You're the only one who understands. My wife stepped between us. Claire, you're confused. What you're feeling isn't love. You don't know what I feel, Claire screamed. He wants me too. I know he does. The commotion woke the other girls. My daughter appeared at the top of the stairs, her face white with shock. The other girls clustered behind her, whispering. Everyone back to bed, my wife ordered in her nurse voice. Now, they scattered, but my daughter remained. Mom? Dad? What's happening? Claire turned to her, tears streaming down her face. Your dad and I are in love. Tell them how he looks at me. Claire, that's not true, my daughter said firmly. My dad loves my mom. He's been nothing but kind to you, like he is to all my friends. You're lying. You're all lying. Claire crumpled to the floor, sobbing. My wife knelt beside her while I called Claire's mother. The phone rang and rang before a slurred voice answered. What? Mrs. Patterson? This is Mr. Thompson. Claire is at our house for a sleepover, but she's having some kind of episode. You need to come get her. Can't she just sleep it off? I'm not driving anywhere tonight. I gritted my teeth. Then I'm calling an ambulance. Don't you dare. I don't need those bills. Fine. I'll get an Uber. It took 45 minutes for Claire's mother to arrive, during which time my wife sat with Claire in the living room while I waited outside. When the Uber pulled up, a woman stumbled out, clearly intoxicated. Where's my disaster of a daughter? She slurred. I bit back my anger. She's inside. She's very upset. She's always upset. Drama queen, just like her father. My wife brought Claire out, wrapped in a blanket. The girl looked small and broken, her makeup smeared, her body shaking. When she saw her mother, she shrank back. Get in the car, her mother snapped. You're embarrassing me again. Claire looked at me one last time, her eyes pleading. I'm sorry, she whispered. I just wanted someone to love me. As their Uber drove away, my wife and I stood in the driveway, shaken. Our daughter joined us, wrapping her arms around both of us. Is she going to be okay? She asked. I don't know, I admitted, but we're going to make sure she gets help. The next morning, my wife called her colleague who specialized in adolescent trauma. After explaining the situation, she gave us the number for Child Protective Services. We spent hours on the phone, filing reports, sharing our concerns about Claire's home situation and mental health. Monday arrived with an eerie quiet. Claire didn't come to school, according to our daughter. I tried to focus on work, but I kept thinking about that broken girl who'd mistaken basic human decency for romantic love. Tuesday morning brought an unexpected visitor to my office. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant knocked and said there was a young woman insisting she needed to speak with me urgently. My stomach dropped when Claire walked through the door, wearing what looked like a business suit that was too big for her frame. She'd clearly put effort into looking older. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she carried a leather portfolio, but her hands shook as she clutched it, and her eyes had that same desperate quality I'd seen during the sleepover incident. Claire, you shouldn't be here, I said, standing but staying behind my desk. How did you even find my office? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I remembered you mentioning the company name. The receptionist was very helpful when I said I was your daughter's friend with an emergency. I reached for my phone. I'm calling your mother. She doesn't know I'm here. She thinks I'm at school. Claire opened the portfolio and pulled out a handwritten letter. I wrote this for you. Everything I couldn't say properly the other night. I'm not reading that. You need to leave. Her composure cracked. Just read it, please. I spent all weekend writing it. I explained everything. How we fell in love, how you saved me, how we're meant to be together. Claire, we are not in love. I'm a married man with children. You're a teenager who needs help. Age is just a number. You're only 48. That's not even that old. When I turn 18 in 2 years, it won't matter anymore. We can wait if that makes you more comfortable. The casual way she'd researched my age sent chills down my spine. I pressed the intercom button. Security to my office, please. Claire's face crumpled. Why are you doing this? Why are you being so cruel? I'm not being cruel. I'm being appropriate. You need to go home. She stood abruptly, the letter fluttering to the floor. If you send me away, I'll hurt myself. I'll do it, and it'll be your fault. You'll have to live with that forever. 2 security guards appeared in my doorway. Claire looked between them and me, tears streaming down her face. This isn't over, she said quietly. You can't just throw away what we have. After security escorted her out, I immediately called my wife. She left her shift early, and we went together to the police station to file a report. The officer who took our statement, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair, listened carefully as we explained the situation. Has she made any explicit threats against you or your family? She asked. Just the threat to harm herself, I said. But she's escalating. Showing up at my workplace is a new level. The officer nodded. We'll do a welfare check at her home. Given her age and the threat of self-harm, we'll also notify CPS. Do you want to pursue a restraining order? My wife and I exchanged glances. We don't want to traumatize her further, my wife said, but we also need to protect our family. Think about it, the officer said. In the meantime, document everything. Save any texts, letters, anything she sends you. And if she shows up again anywhere, call 911 immediately. We picked up our daughter from school early. She was quiet on the drive home, staring out the window. When we got home, she finally spoke. Everyone's talking about it, she said quietly. Someone saw Claire at your office building and posted about it. Now there are rumors that you and she couldn't finish. Honey, you know that's not true, my wife said. I know, but Claire's been telling people things. She showed some girls' texts that she claims are from Dad, but I know they're fake because she showed me one that supposedly said he loved her smile, and Dad would never text that to anyone but Mom. I felt sick. She's fabricating evidence? She's convinced herself it's real, our daughter said. I tried to talk to her yesterday, to get her to understand, but she just kept saying I was jealous. She said I couldn't handle sharing my dad. That evening, we held a family meeting. Our son, usually absorbed in his projects, gave us his full attention as we explained the situation in age-appropriate terms. So Claire is sick? He asked. Like mentally? She's struggling, my wife explained. Sometimes when people have been hurt badly, they don't know how to interpret kindness correctly. But why Dad? He asked. Why not fixate on Mom? She's nice too. Claire's never had a positive male figure in her life, I said. When I showed her basic kindness, her mind twisted it into something it wasn't. That's really sad, our son said. But also, kind of scary. It is both of those things, my wife agreed, which is why we need to be careful for a while. Over the next few days, we implemented new safety measures. I varied my route to work, we installed security cameras, and my wife arranged for the kids to be picked up directly from school instead of walking home. It felt like overkill, but the image of Claire in my office, threatening to hurt herself, haunted me. Thursday afternoon, my daughter came home visibly upset. She threw her backpack on the kitchen counter and slumped in a chair. What happened? My wife asked. Claire's been telling everyone that Dad is texting her constantly. She's showing people her phone, but when I looked closely, I realized she's texting herself. She saved her own number under Dad's name and is having fake conversations. Oh, honey, my wife said, pulling her into a hug. Some people believe her, our daughter continued, her voice muffled against my wife's shoulder. They asked me if my parents were getting divorced, and Cassandra said her mom told her to be careful around our house. I felt anger rise in my chest. This poor, sick girl was now affecting my children's lives. Maybe we should consider that restraining order, I said to my wife. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction with Claire, wondering if I'd somehow encouraged her delusions. Had I been too friendly? Should I have seen the warning signs sooner? My wife found me in the kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at a cold cup of coffee. Stop, she said, knowing exactly what I was thinking. You showed kindness to a child in need. That's not something to regret. But look what it's led to. Our daughter is being ostracized at school. Our son is scared. You're having to leave work early to deal with this. She sat beside me, taking my hand. And Claire is getting the help she desperately needs, even if she doesn't see it that way yet. Sometimes doing the right thing has messy consequences. Friday brought a new development. Claire's mother called my cell phone, her voice sharp with anger. You need to stop filling my daughter's head with fantasies, she spat. Excuse me? She won't shut up about you. It's Mr. Thompson this and Mr. Thompson that. What kind of grown man encourages a teenage girl's crush? I haven't encouraged anything. In fact, I've filed a police report because your daughter is stalking me. Stalking? She's a child. You're the adult here. You should have known better than to be so friendly with her. Being kind to your daughter because you neglect her doesn't make me responsible for her delusions, I shot back, my patience finally snapping. How dare you? I'm going to sue you for defamation, for emotional distress, I hung up and immediately called our lawyer. Within hours, we had a cease and desist letter drafted and plans for a restraining order in motion. That weekend, we tried to maintain normalcy. We went to our son's robotics competition, where he placed second. We attended our daughter's volleyball game, cheering loudly despite the whispers from some other parents. But the shadow of the situation hung over everything. Sunday evening, my daughter's phone rang during dinner. She looked at the screen and paled. It's Claire, she said. Don't answer, I said immediately, but she'd already picked up, putting it on speaker at my wife's gesture. Need to see your dad, Claire was saying, her voice thick with tears. Please, just 5 minutes. I have to explain something. Claire, you need to stop this, my daughter said firmly. My dad doesn't love you. He loves my mom. He was just being nice to you. You don't understand. He does love me. He's just scared. If I could just talk to him alone, that's never going to happen, my daughter said. And if you don't stop this, you're going to get in serious trouble. I don't care about trouble. Without him, I don't care about anything. The line went dead. My daughter looked at us with tears in her eyes. I'm scared she's going to do something stupid. We called the police again, reporting the conversation and the implied threat. They said they'd do another welfare check, but without an explicit threat, their hands were tied. Monday morning, I was hypervigilant driving to work. Every young woman on the street made my heart race. When I arrived at the office, security informed me they'd been briefed on the situation and would be extra watchful. The day passed without incident, but I couldn't focus. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be Claire or another crisis. My productivity plummeted, and my boss noticed. Everything okay? He asked during our afternoon meeting. You seem distracted. I gave him an abbreviated version of the situation. His expression grew increasingly concerned as I spoke. Take some time if you need it, he said. Family safety comes first. That evening, my wife's colleague who specialized in adolescent trauma called with an update. She'd managed to connect with Claire's school counselor, who was deeply concerned about the girl's mental state. She's been showing signs of delusional thinking for weeks, the colleague reported. The counselor tried to get Claire's mother to agree to therapy, but she refused, saying Claire was just being dramatic. Can the school intervene? My wife asked. They're building a case. Your police reports help, but these things take time. Time we didn't have, I thought. Each day felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. Wednesday afternoon, the bomb detonated. I was in a meeting when my assistant interrupted, her face grave. Your wife is on the line. She says it's an emergency. I excused myself and took the call in the hallway. Claire's at the house, my wife said, her voice tight. She's on the front lawn with a knife, saying she'll hurt herself if you don't come home and talk to her. My blood ran cold. Did you call 911? They're on their way, but she's getting more agitated. She keeps saying she knows you're the only one who can save her. I'm coming. Keep the doors locked. Don't go outside. Our neighbor is recording everything on his phone. He said he'll send it to us for evidence. I drove home breaking every speed limit, my hands shaking on the wheel. Police cars were already there when I arrived, their lights painting the neighborhood in reds and blues. A small crowd had gathered, phones out, recording the drama. Claire stood in the middle of our lawn, a kitchen knife pressed to her wrist. Her clothes were disheveled, her hair wild. When she saw me get out of my car, her face lit up with a disturbing mix of joy and desperation. "You came," she cried. "I knew you would. Tell them how you feel about me." A police officer approached me. "Sir, we need you to stay back. Crisis negotiation is on the way." "I can't stay back," I said. "She's doing this because of me, which is exactly why you need to let us handle it." But Claire had seen me. She took a step forward, the knife wavering. "Why won't you talk to me? Why are you being so cruel?" "Claire," I called out, ignoring the officer's warning. "Put the knife down. This isn't the answer." "You love me," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I know you do. You bought my favorite foods. You said your house was my house. You cared when no one else did. I care about you as a human being," I said carefully, "as my daughter's friend. But Claire, what you're feeling isn't love. It's confusion. You've been hurt so badly that you don't know what appropriate caring looks like." "Stop lying," she screamed. "Stop pretending. I'll do it. I'll cut myself and bleed out right here on your perfect lawn, and everyone will know it's because you rejected me." My wife appeared beside me, having ignored the police directive to stay inside. She stepped forward slowly, her nurse training evident in her calm demeanor. "Claire, sweetheart," she said gently, "you're in pain. I can see that. But hurting yourself won't make the pain go away. It won't make my husband love you the way you want him to. You don't understand," Claire sobbed. "No one understands. He's the only good thing in my life, the only person who's ever been kind to me." "That's not true," my wife said. "Your teachers care about you. The counselor at school has been trying to help you. My daughter cares about you, even now." "They don't care like he does," Claire insisted, but her grip on the knife loosened slightly. The crisis negotiator arrived then, a woman with a soothing voice who gradually took over the conversation. For 40 agonizing minutes, she talked to Claire, slowly building rapport, gently challenging her distorted thinking. Finally, Claire dropped the knife. The moment it hit the grass, officers moved in, restraining her gently, but firmly. As they led her to the ambulance, she looked back at me one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I just wanted to be loved." The ambulance doors closed, and she was gone. My wife and I stood on our lawn, surrounded by police and gawking neighbors, holding each other tightly. Our children had been kept at school during the crisis, but we had to tell them what happened when they got home. They were both shaken, my daughter especially. "Will she be okay?" she asked. "She's getting help now," my wife said. "Real help, the kind she's needed for a long time." That night, none of us slept well. The image of Claire on our lawn with a knife haunted us all. The next morning, we learned she'd been placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold. Her mother, faced with the reality of her daughter's mental state and the scrutiny of CPS, finally agreed to treatment. The following days blurred together. We gave statements to police, met with lawyers about the restraining order, and dealt with the aftermath at school and in our neighborhood. Some people were supportive, understanding that we'd been victims of a troubled child's delusions. Others whispered behind their hands, wondering if there was more to the story. My daughter lost a few friends whose parents decided our family was too much drama. My son retreated further into his robotics, using building as an escape. My wife and I took turns being strong for each other, but the stress was taking its toll. A week after the lawn incident, we got a call from the psychiatric facility where Claire was being treated. Her doctor wanted to arrange a family session, not with Claire present, but to help us process what had happened and to gather information for Claire's treatment. We sat in a sterile conference room as the psychiatrist, Dr. Theo, explained Claire's diagnosis. "She's suffering from what we call erotomania, a delusional belief that someone is in love with her. It's often triggered by trauma and abandonment issues." "Will she get better?" I asked. "With proper treatment and medication, many people with this condition can recover, but it takes time, and Claire has additional challenges. Her eating disorder, her traumatic home life, her mother's emotional abuse." "What about her mother?" my wife asked. "Is Claire going back to that environment?" "CPS is involved now. They're exploring options, including therapeutic foster care. Claire's mother is also being required to attend parenting classes and therapy herself." We left the session feeling emotionally drained, but slightly hopeful. Claire was finally getting the help she needed, even if it had taken a crisis to make it happen. The next few weeks passed slowly. The restraining order was granted, requiring Claire to stay away from our family and home. We heard through official channels that she was responding well to treatment, beginning to understand that her feelings had been symptoms of her illness rather than real love. My daughter gradually rebuilt her social circle, finding out who her true friends were. Some kids at school started a mental health awareness campaign, inspired by what had happened with Claire. My son emerged from his robotics cave, having built what he called a safety bot that would patrol our house. We didn't have the heart to tell him it was unnecessary. One evening, about a month after the lawn incident, we were having dinner when my daughter's phone chimed. She looked at it and gasped. "It's from Cassandra. She says Claire's mom was arrested for hammered driving and child endangerment. Apparently, she left Claire's younger brother home alone for 2 days. We hadn't even known Claire had a brother. The layers of dysfunction in that family ran deeper than we'd imagined. Those poor kids," my wife murmured. That night, we talked about the ripple effects of trauma, how Claire's mother's abuse had created a chain reaction that had ultimately touched our lives. We talked about the fine line between helping and enabling, between kindness and maintaining boundaries. "I still don't regret being kind to her," I said. "I just wish we'd recognized the signs sooner." "We're not mental health professionals," my wife reminded me. "We did what we thought was right with the information we had." As the weeks turned into months, life slowly returned to a new normal. The security cameras remained, and I still checked my surroundings more carefully than before. But the acute fear faded, replaced by a sadness for a broken girl who'd mistaken basic human decency for something more. We heard updates occasionally. Claire was in a therapeutic group home, attending a special school, making progress in therapy. Her brother had been placed with relatives. Her mother was in court-ordered rehab. 3 months after the crisis, a letter arrived addressed to our family. My wife and I read it together before sharing it with our kids. "Dear Thompson family," it began in Claire's careful handwriting. "My therapist said it might help my recovery to write this letter, even if I don't send it. But I decided to send it because you deserve to know how sorry I am. I understand now that Mr. Thompson was just being kind to me, the way he would be kind to any of his daughter's friends. My mind turned that kindness into something else, because I was so desperate to feel loved and special. I created a fantasy because reality was too painful. I'm getting better now. I'm taking medication that helps me think more clearly. I'm in therapy 3 times a week. I'm even eating regular meals and gaining healthy weight. I have a long way to go, but I'm trying. I'm so sorry for the pain and fear I caused your family. You didn't deserve any of it. Thank you for making sure I got help, even though I made your lives difficult. Maybe someday I'll be healthy enough to have appropriate relationships with people who really do care about me. Please tell your daughter I'm sorry for being a bad friend and for causing her problems at school. Tell your son I'm sorry if I scared him. And please know that I understand now what healthy caring looks like, thanks to your example. With sincere apologies and gratitude, Claire." We sat in silence after reading it, each processing our own emotions. Finally, our daughter spoke. "I'm glad she's getting better," she said quietly. "Maybe when she's older and healthier, we can be friends again. Real friends this time." "Maybe," I agreed, "but that's a long way off. For now, we just hope she continues to heal." As I looked around at my family, my wise, compassionate wife, my brave, forgiving daughter, my protective, innovative son, I felt grateful. We'd weathered this storm together, and while it had left its marks, it hadn't broken us. The experience had taught us all valuable lessons about boundaries, mental health, and the complex ways trauma can manifest. It had shown us the importance of trusting our instincts and seeking help when situations escalate beyond our capabilities. Most importantly, it had reinforced that kindness, while sometimes complicated in its consequences, was still worth practicing, just with wisdom, boundaries, and awareness. As we cleared the dinner table that night, returning to our routine, I realized that Claire had been both right and wrong in that letter. We had shown her what healthy caring looked like, but more than that, she had shown us the devastating effects of its absence and the critical importance of making sure all children have access to the mental health support they need. The story wasn't over. Claire still had a long journey ahead, and we would carry the experience with us always. But for now, we were home, we were safe, and we were together, and that was enough. I need to create an ending that continues from where the middle section left off. After Claire's letter arrives 3 months post-crisis, the ending must maintain 97% action until approximately word 1818, then provide tight resolution in the final 3%. The middle section ends with the family reading Claire's apology letter 3 months after the lawn incident. Key unresolved elements from the plot direction that need addressing: the 6-month time jump showing Claire's recovery, family implementing new protocols while remaining open to helping others, father volunteering with organization training adults to recognize abuse signs, final reflection on lessons learned without being preachy. I need to continue with active developments for approximately 1,818 words before brief resolution. The weeks following Claire's letter brought unexpected challenges. My daughter discovered that several classmates had started a rumor that Claire was pregnant with my child, despite the complete impossibility of such a thing. She came home from school one afternoon with her eyes red from crying, clutching her phone where someone had posted a doctored photo, making it look like Claire and I were together. My wife immediately contacted the school administration while I called our lawyer. The principal scheduled an emergency assembly about cyberbullying and spreading false information. The student who created the fake image was suspended, but the damage to my daughter's reputation lingered. "Maybe I should transfer schools," she said one evening, pushing food around her plate. "Absolutely not," my wife said firmly. "You've done nothing wrong. Running away won't solve this." My son, typically quiet during family discussions, surprised us all. "I'll eat lunch with you tomorrow," he offered. "My robotics friends think the whole thing is stupid anyway." The gesture meant more than he probably realized. My daughter hugged him tightly, and for once, he didn't squirm away. Work became another battlefield. Despite my boss's initial support, HR launched an investigation after an anonymous complaint suggested I'd acted inappropriately with a minor. I spent hours in meetings, providing documentation, witness statements, and the police reports that clearly showed I was the victim of stalking. The investigation cleared me completely, but the whispers in the office continued. Colleagues who'd worked with me for years suddenly seemed uncomfortable being alone with me in the break room. My assistant started leaving the door open during our meetings, even though she'd been one of my strongest defenders. One particularly difficult day, I found myself in the parking garage, sitting in my car, and wondering if this would follow me forever. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife. Remember why we helped her in the first place. This too shall pass. 4 months after the crisis, we received notice that Claire's mother was contesting the CPS findings. She'd hired a lawyer and was demanding her children be returned to her custody. The social worker called to warn us we might be subpoenaed to testify. I can't believe she's trying to get them back, my wife said, reading the legal documents. After everything that's happened, the court date was set for 6 weeks out. We met with the prosecutor handling the CPS case, a tired-looking woman named Patricia, who'd clearly seen too many broken families. Your testimony will be crucial, she explained. You're the ones who witnessed Claire's mental state deteriorating. You filed the reports that got her help. What about Claire's brother? I asked. How's he doing? Patricia's expression softened slightly. He's thriving with his aunt and uncle. First time in his life he's had stable meals and a regular bedtime. He's even made the honor roll. The thought of that boy being sent back to his mother's chaos strengthened my resolve. We would testify, despite knowing it would thrust us back into the spotlight. My daughter struggled with the upcoming court date differently. She'd maintained sporadic contact with Claire through a mutual friend who visited the group home. The reports were encouraging. Claire was gaining weight, participating in group therapy, even taking up painting as a therapeutic outlet. She wants to apologize to you in person, my daughter told me one evening. Her therapist thinks it might help her healing process. I felt my chest tighten. I don't think that's a good idea. The restraining order is still in effect. It could be supervised. At the facility, with her therapist present, my wife and I exchanged glances. The thought of seeing Claire again, even in a controlled environment, made my skin crawl. But I also remembered the broken girl on our lawn, desperate for any scrap of affection. Let me think about it, I said finally. That weekend, we attended a workshop for families dealing with stalking situations. The facilitator, a former police officer named Jules, shared statistics that made my blood run cold. Most stalking victims knew their stalkers. Many cases escalated to violence. Some ended in tragedy. During the break, another participant approached me. She was roughly my age, with tired eyes and nervous hands. I couldn't help but overhear your story, she said quietly. Something similar happened to my husband. A student became obsessed with him. It destroyed his teaching career. How did you get through it? My wife asked. The woman's smile was sad. Day by day, therapy helped. Moving to a new town helped more. But mostly, we just learned to live with the new normal. Her words haunted me for days. Was that our future? Always looking over our shoulders, always wondering if Claire might relapse, always dealing with the whispers and suspicions. The court date arrived faster than expected. We dressed carefully, professionally, trying to project stability and credibility. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, with wood paneling that had seen better days and fluorescent lights that hummed annoyingly. Claire's mother arrived late, reeking of alcohol despite it being 9 in the morning. Her lawyer, a greasy man in an ill-fitting suit, immediately began attacking our credibility. Isn't it true that you encouraged an inappropriate relationship with my client's daughter? He asked during cross-examination. Absolutely not, I said firmly. I showed basic human kindness to a child who was being neglected and abused. You bought her special food. You told her your house was her house. Some might say you were grooming her. My lawyer objected before I could respond, but the damage was done. I saw doubt creep into the judge's eyes. My wife's testimony was stronger. Her medical background and calm demeanor made her an excellent witness. She detailed Claire's physical condition when we first met her, the signs of neglect and abuse, the escalating behavior that indicated mental illness. As a pediatric nurse, I'm a mandated reporter, she said. What I witnessed in that home warranted intervention, regardless of Claire's fixation on my husband. The social worker testified about the conditions in Claire's home, the empty refrigerator, the bottles hidden throughout the house, the younger brother who'd been left alone for days at a time. Photos were entered into evidence that made several people in the gallery gasp. Claire's mother's lawyer tried to spin it as a temporary rough patch, a single mother overwhelmed by circumstances. But when Claire's mother took the stand, she destroyed her own case within minutes. That girl has always been dramatic, she slurred, despite her lawyer's attempts to silence her. Making up stories for attention, just like her worthless father, probably learned it from him before he ran off. The judge's decision was swift and decisive. Claire would remain in therapeutic care until she turned 18. Her brother would stay with his relatives, with supervised visits from their mother, only after she completed rehab and parenting classes. The relief in the courtroom was palpable. Outside the courthouse, Patricia shook our hands. You did the right thing, both in helping Claire initially and in seeing this through. It doesn't feel like winning, I admitted. Those kids still have a long road ahead. But now they have a chance, she said. That's more than they had before. The drive home was quiet. We'd done what needed to be done, but the weight of it all pressed down on us. 2 children's lives had been irrevocably changed, and we'd been the catalysts, for better or worse. My daughter was waiting when we got home, anxious for news. When we told her the outcome, she burst into tears. "I know it's for the best," she said, "but I still feel guilty, like if I'd never brought Claire home, then she might have latched onto someone else," my wife said gently. "Someone who might have taken advantage of her vulnerability, or she might have hurt herself without ever getting help." That evening, I made a decision. I called the number Jules had given me at the workshop, a nonprofit that trained adults to recognize signs of abuse and mental illness in teenagers. If our experience could help prevent another family from going through this, maybe some good could come from it all. The training sessions were intense. Every Tuesday evening for 6 weeks, I joined a group of teachers, coaches, and parents, learning about mandatory reporting, boundary setting, and crisis intervention. The facilitator, a social worker named James, used real case studies that hit uncomfortably close to home. "The hardest part," he said during one session, "is that these kids aren't manipulative by nature. Their survival strategies gone wrong. When you've never had healthy relationships modeled, you don't know what they look like." I thought about Claire, creating fake text conversations because she so desperately wanted them to be real. The anger I'd carried started to shift into something more like pity. 5 months after the crisis, spring arrived with unusual warmth. The pool cover came off, and with it, memories of that night when everything changed. My son tested his safety bot around the perimeter, its sensors beeping whenever it detected movement. We let him run it during parties, more for his peace of mind than any real security need. My daughter's social life had stabilized. The rumors had died down, replaced by newer dramas. She'd even started dating a boy from her volleyball team, a quiet kid who treated her well and made her laugh. Watching them together, I was struck by how normal and healthy their relationship seemed. No desperation, no obsession, just 2 kids enjoying each other's company. "Do you think Claire will ever have that?" my daughter asked one evening, watching her boyfriend's car pull away. "I hope so," I said honestly. "With enough therapy and support, she can learn what healthy relationships look like." My wife's colleague called with periodic updates. Claire was making remarkable progress. She'd gained 15 pounds and was participating actively in group therapy. She'd even started tutoring younger kids in the facility with their homework, channeling her need to be needed into something positive. "Her therapist thinks she might be ready for that supervised apology session," the colleague mentioned, "but only if you're comfortable with it." I discussed it with my wife that night. The restraining order would expire in another month anyway, and Claire would be transitioning to a less restrictive group home soon. Maybe closure would help us all move forward. "I think we should do it," my wife said finally. "Not for her, but for us, to see that she's really getting better." We scheduled the meeting for the following week. The facility was an hour away, a nondescript building that looked more like an office complex than a treatment center. We were led to a conference room where Claire's therapist, Dr. Patel, was waiting. "Thank you for coming," she said warmly. "This is a big step for Claire, but I want to be clear, this is also for your benefit. You're under no obligation to forgive or forget. This is simply an opportunity for supervised dialogue." When Claire entered the room, I hardly recognized her. The gaunt, desperate girl was gone, replaced by someone who looked normal, healthy. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her hands shook slightly, but her eyes were clear. "Hi," she said quietly, taking a seat across from us. "Thank you for coming." Dr. Patel guided the conversation carefully. Claire spoke about her therapy, about understanding her diagnosis, about the medication that helped quiet the obsessive thoughts. She talked about her father leaving, her mother's cruelty, the desperate need to be special to someone. "I created a fantasy because reality hurt too much," she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "I convinced myself you loved me because I needed someone to love me. I see now how scary that must have been for you." "It was scary," I admitted. "But more than that, we were worried about you. We could see how much pain you were in." "I'm sorry I turned your kindness into something ugly," Claire continued. "You were just being a good dad, opening your home to your daughter's friends. I twisted that into something it wasn't because I'd never seen what a good dad looked like before." The session lasted an hour. By the end, we were all emotionally drained. As we prepared to leave, Claire stood, but maintained her distance. "I'm going to keep getting better," she said. "I want to be a social worker someday, to help kids like me. Maybe something good can come from all this mess." Walking to our car, my wife took my hand. "How do you feel?" "Hopeful," I said, surprising myself. "And tired. Really, really tired." The restraining order expired without renewal. Claire transitioned to her new group home, and eventually to a therapeutic foster family. We heard she was doing well, attending school, making appropriate friendships, continuing therapy. The updates came less frequently as time passed, which seemed healthy for everyone involved. 6 months after the lawn incident, almost to the day, I stood in front of a room full of adults at my first official presentation as a volunteer trainer. My hands were sweaty, but my voice was strong as I began. "I want to tell you about a girl named Claire, and how a simple act of kindness became complicated in ways I never imagined." I told our story, carefully anonymized but honest about the fear, the confusion, the guilt. I talked about warning signs we'd missed, boundaries we should have set earlier, the importance of involving professionals when situations escalate beyond normal teenage drama. The questions afterward were thoughtful and challenging. How do you balance helping vulnerable kids with protecting your own family? When When does kindness become enabling? How do you recognize when a child's trauma is manifesting in dangerous ways? I don't have all the answers, I admitted. But I know that pulling back from helping kids isn't the solution. We just need to be smarter about it, more aware, more prepared. After the presentation, a woman approached me. She was a high school teacher, young and earnest. "I have a student who reminds me of your Claire," she said quietly, "always staying after class, asking personal questions, finding excuses to be around me. I've been brushing it off, but now, document everything," I said immediately. "Talk to your administration, set clear boundaries, and most importantly, get that kid connected with counseling services. The earlier the intervention, the better." Driving home, I reflected on how far we'd all come. The experience had changed us, individually and as a family. We were more cautious, but not closed off, more aware, but not paranoid. We'd learned hard lessons about boundaries and the complexity of trauma, but we hadn't let it harden our hearts. My daughter still brought friends home, though we now had clear rules about supervision and communication. My son's safety bot had evolved into an actual entry for the state robotics competition. My wife had developed new protocols for her hospital about recognizing signs of abuse in teenage patients. That night at dinner, my daughter shared news from school. "Remember Thay? She told me she's been seeing the school counselor about her anxiety. She said our assembly about mental health made her realize it was okay to ask for help." "That's wonderful," my wife said. "Yeah, and get this, Claire's foster mom works at the community center. They met her last week and said Claire's doing really well. She's even volunteering with younger kids, supervised of course." I felt a complex mix of emotions, relief, residual worry, and something like pride. Claire was finding her way, channeling her need for connection into appropriate outlets. "Good for her," I said, meaning it. As we cleared the table, my son mentioned his robotics team was looking for parent volunteers for their upcoming competition. "I know you're busy with the training stuff," he said hesitantly, "but maybe if you have time." "I'll make time," I promised. Life had found its rhythm again, different from before but sustainable. We'd weathered a storm that could have destroyed us, emerging scarred but intact. Most importantly, we'd learned that helping others didn't mean sacrificing ourselves, that boundaries weren't walls, and that kindness, even when complicated by someone else's trauma, was still worth practicing. The training sessions continued monthly, reaching dozens of adults who worked with teenagers. Each time I told our story, it got a little easier, the emotions a little less raw. The questions evolved from, "How did you handle the fear?" to, "How can we prevent this?" A shift that felt like progress. One evening, preparing for another presentation, I found the letter Claire had written us 3 months after the crisis. I'd kept it in my desk drawer, unsure why. Reading it again, I was struck by her growth even then, the beginning of understanding that would eventually lead to her recovery. My wife found me there, letter in hand. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, folding it carefully, just thinking about how different things could have been, if she'd fixated on someone else, if we hadn't gotten her help, if her mother had won custody. "But none of those things happened," she reminded me. "We did the best we could with an impossible situation, and everyone's okay now." She was right. Claire was healing. Her brother was thriving. Our family had grown stronger through adversity. Even Claire's mother, last we'd heard, was finally in rehab after another arrest. The ripple effects of trauma had touched all our lives, but we'd refused to let them pull us under. Instead, we'd learned to swim in choppy waters, to recognize dangerous currents, and to throw lifelines without getting dragged down ourselves. That night, as I revised my presentation, I added a new section about recovery and hope, because that's what our story had become, not just a cautionary tale about boundaries and mental illness, but a testament to resilience, professional intervention, and the possibility of healing, even from the deepest wounds. The next morning brought a familiar routine, breakfast chaos, my son explaining his latest robotics innovation, my daughter debating whether to try out for the school play, normal teenage concerns in a house that had learned to appreciate normal. As I headed to work, I passed the community center where Claire apparently volunteered now. I didn't slow down or look for her, those chapters were closed, but I sent up a quiet hope that she was finding her way, that the kindness she'd once misinterpreted was now something she could give and receive appropriately. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife. "Love you. Pick up milk on the way home?" I smiled, texting back a simple, yes. Life had returned to these small moments, these ordinary exchanges that we'd once taken for granted. They felt precious now, worth protecting. The sun was shining, traffic was moving, and somewhere in the city, broken kids were slowly healing while families like ours shared their stories to prevent future crises. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Claire would always struggle with her past. We'd always carry the scars of that terrifying night, and the world remained full of vulnerable children seeking connection in dangerous ways. But it was enough. We'd survived, learned, and chosen to channel our experience into something useful. The house that had once been just a hangout spot for teenagers was now a symbol of something more complex, the intersection of kindness and boundaries, of helping and protecting, of opening doors while maintaining walls. As I pulled into the office parking garage, I realized I no longer checked my surroundings with the same hypervigilance. The fear had faded into wisdom, the trauma into teaching moments. We'd found our new normal, and it was good.